I am going to throw, as has been my style the whole way through, we're going to throw that open to questions. Has anyone got anything burning at the moment? We've got one from Neil and Alex. Our speakers are speaking.
Aileen, a particular question, and it's a perception on my part, and I'd just like to get your feel for it. My perception is the work you mentioned from What Works for Local Growth is actually unhelpful for wider value for money questions, in that it's far too tightly bounded around a particular idea of economic growth and doesn't have an evidence base that looks at wider social value and wider questions of social inclusion. And I've been Claire's and myself have been a long time worried about what works for local economic growth on those very basis. So I'm wondering how you square the circle between something which is perhaps quite tightly bounded and how it relates to wider value for money, including social value.
So do you want to should we just take the other question first?
My question was about evaluation. So under what time frames do you look at evaluation? Because there's some, intergenerational poverty and some things that you're really, having to reverse and change things completely. But then at the same time, we're evaluating under very tight time scales often. So what, do you think that should change when we're looking at, say, early years and devolution?
Righto. The What Works centres, they can only do what they're set up to do and answer the questions in the way that they're asked. And I take your point. I mean, I'm not an expert in evaluating growth particularly, but I think that the actual existence of What Works centres and the sort of commitment to at least evaluating what government does is a welcome one. I'm sure that it could probably be done better, although I don't want to say that in the room if Henry Overman is actually here. Is he? It's all right. He's told me off in the past for being too centrist and being obsessed with monitoring and that kind of thing. I think as an auditor, it's kind of part of your job to be obsessed with monitoring, but there you are. So that's kind of what I'd say on that. I think that the social capital point is a really, really interesting one. And one of the things that surprised me, one of the first reports I did in my new job on local government, I must stop calling it that after 3 years, is that when we looked at adult social care in England, I was absolutely staggered at the cost or the resource that comes from unpaid care in the system. It's estimated at between 50 and 100 billion pounds a year, and that's an enormous amount of work, isn't it, by people, and a huge influx into the system. So I think that social capital, absolutely. I think it's important that we start thinking about how you measure social inclusion and what proxy measures there are, because so much of what Andy was saying was really about the old-fashioned term social exclusion, wasn't it? Evaluation. I think wasn't it John Maynard Keynes that said in the long run we're all dead? Sorry, Richard.
No, sorry.
I was on a roll there,
yes.
So I'll carry on rolling. So I think it's a really good point. But I think that when you're talking about some of these projects and investment funds and whatnot are going to run for like 20, 25, 40 years, we can't wait to the end of it to see whether it was good, bad or indifferent. We have to find a way of at least measuring something as we go along. And there is built into the GM deal, of course, the earnback investment panel. Now, it would be good to see that actually at least starting to be up and running, because 5 years isn't all that long a time before someone's going to think, hang on a minute, weren't we supposed to be evaluating that? So I think there's ways of doing it. What I think the risk is of doing it too early and asking the wrong question and getting the wrong answer, but that we just have to live with.
Okay, I'm going to chuck in one of my own questions here, actually. In terms of what you do at the NAO for local government is reasonably light touch compared with the Audit Commission,
What's your point?
which is in terms of devolved government. Is it going to be enough when it's a completely new system to allow the accountability? It's very popular within local government that the Audit Commission's gone, but equally, is it enough for devolved local services?
Yes, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. The Local Audit and Accountability Act swept away the previous system, and it took away CAA and the Audit Commission. So I am not the external auditor of local government. We have statutory powers which we're exercising. The accountability landscape is fundamentally changed with the 2011 Localism Act. So we are where we are, as it were. And I think what I was trying to say when I was talking was it's very important that the scrutiny function in local government is as strong as it should be, given the circumstances that they're in and how much money, public money is being spent. And I think one of the things that I worry about and that we've reported on and commented on is bodies like local enterprise partnerships, who now are instrumental in influencing £12 billion worth of local growth fund money running up to 2020, and yet aren't really public bodies and aren't really set up with a proper structure. So we have to think much more seriously about accountability gaps in the system, strengthen scrutiny, and have that common shared language of how you hold people to account, and a forum in which to do it. Mm-hmm. And now that Andy's gone, I can say this, and the same goes for mayors. Mm-hmm. You know, mayors are going to be very powerful. He's got his manifesto, hasn't he? Because we all heard it. Whether or not they have a huge budget, they will still be influencing a lot of spend, and they have to be held to account.
Okay. Yep. Okay.
Whether by me or by somebody else.
Yeah. I don't think you need, I think what you're doing is very good, but I think there's a limit to how much one person can do. Okay. Any other questions from the floor? Okay. That's well. In that case, I think we're probably about time to wrap up. I'd like to start by saying a huge thank you to all our guests. I think we've had a huge run through this morning. We've had Alex on the importance of data, and Deborah specifically on the importance of data in revenues and benefits. We've had Andy Burnham, who effectively did a job interview for us today, which I think was, he went down very well, didn't he? But we now know where he stands on what he thinks the government should do on the Northern Powerhouse, transport and education, and even a bit on health. Thank you to Neil, who told us about the importance of people and social value, and to Aileen and Richard for their comments, which I don't need to refresh your memory about, I'm sure. I'd also like to say a huge thank you to Neil Stewart Associates for putting on this event today, and partners Capacity Grid, and thank you all for making the time in what I'm sure is your incredibly busy diaries to come along. Thank you.